इन्द्रेषु नित्यं भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Hare Krishna. Today we continuing chapter 7, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1st, the son of Drona punished. Shloka number 5 and 6. Yaya sammohitah jiva.
Yaya sammohitah jiva.
Atmanam trigunatmakam.
Atmanam trigunatmakam.
Parah api manute anartham.
Parah api manute anartham.
Tatkrutam cha abhipadyate.
Tatkrutam cha abhipadyate.
Anartha upashamam sakshat.
Anartha upashamam sakshat.
Bhakti yogam adhokshaje.
Bhakti yogam adhokshaje.
Lokasya ajanata vidvan.
Lokasya janatah vidvan.
Chakre satvata sanhitam.
Chakre satvata samhitam.
Yaya sammohitah jiva.
Yaya sammohitah jiva.
Atmanam triguna atmakam.
Atmanam trigunatmakam.
Parah api manute anartham.
Parah api manute anartham.
Tatkrutam cha abhipadyate.
Tatkrutam cha abhipadyate.
Anartha upashamam sakshat.
Anartha upashamam sakshat.
Bhakti yogam adhokshaje.
Bhakti yogam adhokshaje.
Lokasya ajanata vidvan.
Lokasya janatah vidvan.
Chakre satvata sanhitam.
Chakre satvata samhitam.
Read please.
Yaya sammahita jiva atmanam trigunatmakam parah api manute anartham tatkrutam cha abhipadyate anartha upashamam sakshat bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya ajanatah vidvan chakre satvata samhitam.
Please read. Who want to read, then read.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone can read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yaya samhito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nattam tatkritam cha abhipate anato upashamam shaktat bhakti yogam ajotsate lokajyanato vidvams chakre satvata samhitam. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Ashish Prabhuji, please read.
Jaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paro api manute anartham tatkritam chabhipadyate anarthopasamam saksad bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya janato vidvam chakre satvata samhitam.
Hare Krishna. Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Due to this external energy, the living entity although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the recreations of material miseries. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyāsadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth, purported by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living being is pointed out with the remedial measures which are to be undertaken, and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products, and due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity understands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material condition is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad-gītā that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. The Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. And affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a savior man just to bring them to order. But the all affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desire relief for soul, relief from the clutches of illusory energy. The king puts his disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and plead for reformation, and on his doing so the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad-gītā, where he personally suggests that although the ways of illusory energy are very steep to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the supreme men are engaged in his transcendental living service, the conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completely by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnations of Vyāsadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment, by the external energy of the Lord, and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself as the super soul, Paramatma, becomes the spiritual master, and from without he becomes the spiritual master in the shape of scripture, sends an interior initiator, spiritual master. This is still more explicitly explained in the next shloka. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, the Cain Upanishad, in relation to the demigod's controlling power. Herein also it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. The living being, thus subject to the control of external energy, is differently situated. It is clear, however, from the present statement of Bhagavatam, that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the personality of Godhead or the perfect being. The perfect being or the Lord cannot be approached even by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes a living being. If the living being and the Lord were in the same category, then it would have been quite possible for Vyāsadeva to see it, and there would have been no question of material distress on the part of the illusioned being, for the Supreme Being is fully cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monist to endeavor to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and the living being been the same, then Srila Shukdev Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of illusory energy. Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyāsadeva, therefore, first of all, diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls, that is, their being illusioned by the external energy. He also saw the perfect Supreme Being, from whom illusory energy is far removed, though he saw both the diseased conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease. And the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living being are undoubtedly qualitatively one, but the Lord is the controller of the illusory energy, whereas the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus, the Lord and the living being are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct herein, that eternal relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise, the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord. And that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned souls with an aim to that goal of life. Srila Vyāsadeva was the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes his part and parcels also. He saw therefore his different energies, namely internal energy, marginal energy, and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions of parts of the plenary portion, namely his different incarnations also. And he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned soul, who are bewildered by the external energy. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endue him with his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं कृष्ण चैतन्य देव श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांच नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा. We try to understand shloka number 5 and 6 of the chapter 7, the son of Drona punished. What described in both shlokas? Shloka number 5 is very most important shloka. Please try to understand in detail from Prabhuji. Prabhuji will tell us in detail. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, as Mataji said, that this is a very important shloka, which actually is a fact. So, what we are seeing is a couple of few important aspects. One is about living entity, that it is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. But because of external energy of Krishna, the living entity starts thinking self as material product, and so undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So this is the disease. Now these material miseries can be mitigated by linking the process of devotional service. So this is the medicine. But problem statement, mass of people do not know this. And solution, Vyāsadeva complied this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. So practically what is happening is the living entity is imprisoned by the external energy. And because it is imprisoned in that shell, therefore it thinks himself as one of the material products. And because of this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers the material miseries. And how? Because of the modes of material nature. So we know the three modes of material nature: Rajogun, Tamogun, Satogun. And that is why whatever nowadays we see people thinking, feeling, willing, all this is happening under material conditions, but then this is perverted. The actual true is in the spiritual world. So what is happening today is not natural for the living being, because even in the original state, it is going to be thinking, it is going to be willing, it is going to be feeling, but it will be on the spiritual platform. But here it is perverted because it is covered by nescience. So in Bhagavad-gītā also same thing comes, that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is covered by nescience. And that is why in Bhagavad-gītā Krishna recommends that you please approach a guru. Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te dhanam dhyaninam tattvadarshina. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Enquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So, if you are self-realized, then it means we have seen the truth. So, seeing the truth means seeing Krishna. And the moment you are able to see Krishna, it means you have got the knowledge, you have become self-realized, and then you are in a position to impart the knowledge. And so, we should approach a guru. The present, unfortunately, conditional state is because of this Brahma, illusion, influence of external energy. So, the illusory energy is taking the initiative when the connect with the Supreme is misplaced or disconnected or Supreme is aloof. But Krishna does not want this. He does not want anyone to be illusioned by Maya. And even Maya is aware of this fact. But still, Prabhupada says it is a thankless job of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by bewildering influence. So Maya is trying to do a job which Krishna does not want, but it has been given to her, and it still does it. And there is no one to thank. Oh, Maya, you are doing so good job. You are keeping us in illusion. No, it is a thankless job. But what Krishna is also doing is, it is not interfering with the task of illusory energy. Because the activity of illusory energy is also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. Just go back to the previous lectures, if you all remember, or go through the YouTube channel and listen to the old lectures, where we have clearly understood how we unfortunately have come in this material world. Because we made a mistake. And so it is necessary that we get reformed. And that requires the presence of the illusory energy. But Krishna at the same time desires relief for us, though we are conditioned. It wants us to have relief from the clutches of illusory energy. So what Krishna does is, he descends from his kingdom in this world and personally gives relief. How? In the form of Bhagavad-gītā, where he personally suggests that though the illusory energy is very, very strong, stiff to overcome, still if you surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord, then you are set free by the order of the Supreme. So, the surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. And this is completed by influence of association. So Lord suggests that we should get association of saintly persons. So by the influence of their speeches, we will become engaged in transcendental loving service. We'll get a taste for hearing of the Lord. And by such hearing only, we can be gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for Lord. And this will be possible because of our surrenderance. So see, Krishna is doing so many activities for us. So from within, as a Paramatma, he is giving us direction. And outside, as a Guru, he is also giving us information through scriptures, through saints, of what is to be done. So this is the real purpose of Krishna, which we need to understand. Otherwise, because of the external energy, we are always controlled, but in personal capacity. The Lord, it cannot be approached by illusory energy. Because though it is a part of Krishna, it can work only on living entities, not on Krishna. And so Krishna is all powerful. Prabhupada mentions always in his lectures that this Bhagavatam is the summum bonum remedy for how the humanity can get out of its suffering. And when it means suffering, it means clutches of Maya. So, Vyāsadeva has done the right diagnosis. He has understood the disease, that it is illusion by the external energy. And then it has also seen what is the solution, that Supreme Personality of Godhead and living beings are qualitatively one, but Lord is controller, whereas living entity is control. So, the eternal relationship, which is transcendental, otherwise, Lord would not have taken the efforts to reclaim us back. So, living entity also should revive its natural love and affection for Lord. And that is the highest perfection for us. So this is the medicine which we have to work upon. Because Krishna is complete. So even his parts and parcels are complete. So whatever be the energies, the internal energy, the marginal energy, the external energy, and whatever are the plenary portions, his expansions, incarnations, whatever be the situation, we have to see that what is the remedial measure, and that measure is only process of devotional service. So the nescience, the great transcendental science that we are talking about, it begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glory of Krishna. So there is revival of the dormant affection, love of God, which is not possible mechanically by hearing and chanting, but it also requires mercy of Krishna. So when Krishna is fully satisfied with our efforts, then he can endow us with loving transcendental service. But then for that, chanting, hearing is the prescribed form, and it has to continue, because the moment it starts, there is mitigation of the unwanted miseries and superfluous miseries of material existence. So this mitigation of the material affection, it will not wait. It is not dependent on the transcendental knowledge. The knowledge is dependent on the devotional service. And then the moment there is devotional service, then there is knowledge, and then there is ultimate realization. So this is the way the cycle is going to continue. And we have to follow it. Prabhupada ji has made this so simple for us to understand through his purports. We just have to read them seriously. So if I were to summarize the key takeaways from today's shlokas, the first and foremost is we are transcendental, we are eternal parts and parcels of Krishna, we are caught here in a personal capacity of Maya, but that Maya is also under the control of Krishna, and he has kept Maya so that we can reform. So how can we reform? We can reform by transcendental hearing and chanting of the holy names of the Lord, his leelas and his form. So we have to continue doing it. And the moment we start doing it, automatically the anarthas get pushed one by one, one by one, one by one. And then we have the knowledge, and that knowledge will lead us to self-realization. That self-realization will lead us to a good platform from where we become suitable enough to be able to get back to Godhead. And this all is starting when we are in association of the devotees, and we are getting mercy of devotee and mercy of Guru. So, practical thing is, let us chant more, let us read more, let us hear more, let us have more association, and let us take the medium of a Guru to actually get the mercy of Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.